Is Osvaldo Bido the A's next great hidden gem? Today on Locked On A's.
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On A's podcast, where it is your team every day. I am your host, Booney, from the Bay Area, and I've been a diehard A's fan since 1981. If you are here, you are either an A's fan, a baseball junkie, or someone who just accidentally clicked the wrong podcast. Either way, welcome aboard. Here at Locked On A's, we're just not about talking baseball. We are living it. From Oakland to Sacramento to Las Vegas, or wherever the rumor mill says the team might end up next. This is the place where green and gold runs deep. We've got game breakdowns, team news, and yes, the occasional rant about Oakland politics and cheap owners. Because, hey, what's an A's conversation without a little spice? We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. And please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button wherever you are following the show. The Athletics, in the latest chapter in the A's never-ending quest to find hidden gems in places other teams forgot existed. You know the drill. Dumpster diving through waivers, minor league scouting missions that feel like Indiana Jones sequels, and a front office philosophy that screams, why buy when you can refurbish? The latest contestant in this game of 40-man roster roulette is Elvis Alvarado, a right-hander claimed off waivers from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yes, those Pirates. The team's so good at losing that they make rebuilding look like an Olympic sport. But hey, one team's forgotten treasures, maybe another team's potential diamond in the rough. But as is tradition in the land of the 40-man roster musical chairs, this acquisition came at a cost. Anthony Maldonado has been designated for assignment, and we will dive into the latest episode of Roster Roulette and see what it means for the A's a little bit later. Well, folks, the A's have done it again in a move that feels like it was pulled straight out of a baseball-themed soap opera. The team has traded for catcher Johnny Peretta from the Miami Marlins. Yes, you heard it right, Johnny Peretta. If your first reaction was who, followed by a quick Google search, congratulations, you're not alone. Even my spell check tried to autocorrect his name to Johnny Parade, which sounds like a festive event I'd actually like to attend. But at last, this is baseball, and we're here to talk trades, not marching bands. The A's sent cash considerations, essentially baseball's version of a Venmo transfer, to the Marlins in exchange for Peretta. To make room for the new acquisition, they designated Kyle McCann for assignment. I like McCann. I was surprised at this move. 1 minute you're on the roster, and the next you're packing your bags because someone named Johnny with an H has taken your spots. Absolutely brutal. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would the A's make this move, and who is Johnny Peretta? Excellent question. Allow me to enlighten you in about 10, maybe 15 minutes, maybe less, maybe more. It all depends on how the editing goes at the end. Let's set the stage, shall we? Picture this. It's a chilling off-season evening in the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yes, those Pirates. The team famous for trading away talent like it's a clearance sale. Decide to non-tender a pitcher named Osvaldo Bido. Now, if you're not fluent in baseball lingo, non-tendered is just a polite way of saying, thank you for your time, but we're good without you. It's baseball's equivalent of getting ghosted after a first date. Last week, Thomas Harrigan from MLB had Osvaldo Bido ranked as the number 3 breakout candidate for 2025. Now, Thomas must be an avid watcher and a big fan of Locked On A's because, as you know, I have been talking about Bido for months. How did Osvaldo Bido go from being Pittsburgh's forgotten stepchild to one of the most intriguing pitchers on the A's staff? Buckle up, because this is a story of redemption, reinvention, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of baseball magic. Up next. Today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you will score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Osvaldo Bido wasn't exactly a household name. He wasn't a Garrett Cole or a Tyler Glasnow, two other pitchers the Pirates famously let walk only to watch them become superstars elsewhere. Nope. Bido is just another guy in the system, another arm in a sea of arms. And yet, here we are talking about him like he just got cast as the lead in the next Marvel movie. Let's be honest. Bido's time with the Pirates wasn't exactly the stuff of legends. Signed out of the Dominican Republic in 2017, he spent years grinding away in the minor leagues. His numbers were fine, not bad enough to write him off entirely, but not good enough to make anyone sit up and say, hey, this guy might be something. He finally got a cup of coffee in the majors in 2023, and while he showed flashes of potential, his overall performance wasn't enough to keep Pittsburgh to keep him around. And honestly, can you blame them? The Pirates have a long history of misjudging talent, but even they couldn't have predicted what was about to happen. Let's go backwards before we go forwards. Bido's first year in pro ball with the Dominican Summer League Pirates weren't exactly screaming future ace. 1-8 record with a 5.33 ERA. Yeah, not exactly screaming future MLB star, right? But hey, every great underdog story starts with a rough patch, right? I mean, no one thought Rocky could go the distance with Apollo Creed after his first fight with Spider Rico. And if you say you did, I would say you are lying. Fast forward a few years, and Bido started to find his footing. In 2019, he put together a solid campaign across two levels of A-ball, finishing with a 3.32 ERA and 107 strikeouts over 135 innings. Not bad for a guy who probably wasn't on anyone's top 100 prospects. But then came 2020, the year that baseball and frankly, everything else hit pause thanks to COVID-19. No minor league season meant no innings for Bido. And when he returned in 2021, he struggled to regain his groove. Bido finally cracked the big leagues in 2023 with the Pirates, but let's be honest, it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. A 5.86 ERA over 50 innings isn't going to earn you a spot on anyone's Christmas card list. By November, the Pirates non-tendered him faster than you swipe left on a bad tender profile. Essentially saying, thanks for playing, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Sure, this 5.86 ERA as a rookie wasn't exactly Cy Young material, but hey, Rome wasn't built in a day either. And neither is a breakout pitcher. But here is where things get interesting. And enter the Athletics. Now, I know what you're thinking. The A's signed a guy with a near 6 ERA. Classic A's, right? And sure, on paper, it might have looked like one of those dumpster dive moves we come to expect during a rebuild. But the A's saw something in Bido that others didn't. And this is the one thing that I love about the A's franchise. The A's are like that friend. You know, we have all had that friend, right? You know, That friend who picks up old furniture off the curb and somehow turns it into a Pinterest-worthy masterpiece. And when they saw Osvaldo Bido sitting on baseball's metaphorical curb, they said, we'll take him. And boy, did that investment pay off. Maybe it was his arm angle, his stuff plus metrics, or just that classic A's intuition for finding diamonds in the rough. Either way, they signed him to a $750,000 major league deal in November 2023. Now, I know what you're thinking. $750,000? That's like 2 months' rent in San Francisco. But for the A's, that's practically a blockbuster deal. Osvaldo Bido at that time was the A's version of Juan Soto. It didn't take long for Bido to start turning heads. Armed with an electric fastball, a slider that makes hitters look silly, and a newfound confidence that seems to have come out of nowhere, he quickly became one of the most intriguing arms in the rotation. Bido started 2024 in AAA with the Las Vegas Aviators, because nothing says welcome to the A's like pitching in a hitter's paradise where ERAs go to die. He got his first call up in May for a doubleheader against the Rangers. And while it wasn't exactly a Hollywood debut, I should know because I happened to be at that game, he showed enough promise to stick around. He got hurt that game. I believe he got pulled in the second inning with a blister in his hand. Bido didn't become a full-time member of the rotation until late July, and that's when things really started to click. From July 23rd through September 2nd, Bido pitched like a man possessed, or at least someone who really didn't want to go back to Vegas. Over 8 starts in that stretch, he posted a 3.56 ERA with a 3.14 strikeout to walk ratio. And here's where it gets nerdy. Among pitchers who faced at least 150 batters during that time, Bido ranked 6th in expected batting average, 188, and 7th in expected weighted on base average, 256. Translation: hitters weren't touching this guy. These are the kind of numbers that make you sit up and say, hey, wait a minute, do we have something here? This also included one awful outing against the Angels where he got rocked in, I believe, 4 innings. August was particularly magical, facing teams like the Dodgers, Blue Jays, and Rays. No slouches there. Bido put up a ridiculous 1.55 ERA over 29 innings with a whip of just 0.79. He even had a stretch where he allowed 2 or fewer hits in 3 straight starts. That is absolutely off the charts. Okay, let's talk about why Bido's success wasn't just smoke and mirrors. First off, the strikeout rate as a starter was 25.8%, the best among all A's starters last season. If you're into advanced metrics, and let's face it, if you're an A's fan, you probably are. His stuff plus numbers showed that 3 of his 5 pitches were above average. Even more impressive, 4 of his 5 pitches had positive run values last year. Basically, hitters weren't just missing, they were confused. We talked about his arm angle, 34 degrees, which makes hitters expect more sinker-like movement on his fastball. Instead, they get something entirely different, which is why he was so effective at generating weak contact. It's like ordering a burger and getting sushi instead. Unexpected, but surprisingly effective. Add in a strikeout to base on balls percentage of 17.2% as a starter, above league average. And you start to see why analysts are calling him a breakout candidate for 2025. But what has changed? How did a guy who couldn't stick with the Pirates suddenly become a breakout candidate for the A's? First off, let's talk about his pitch arsenal. Bido always had good stuff, but with the A's, he seems to have taken it to another level. His fastball has more life, his slider has more bite, and his changeup, well, let's just say it has become a weapon instead of an afterthought. And then there's the mindset. Bido has talked openly about how much he learned from his struggles in Pittsburgh. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, he used it as motivation to get better. And let me tell you, nothing fuels a player quite like being told they're not good enough. Finally, there's the A's themselves. Say what you want about their budget conscious approach to baseball. And believe me, there's plenty to say. But they have a knack for getting the most out of their players, whether it's their analytics department or their coaching staff or simply giving these players an opportunity. Something about the A's seems to bring out the best in guys like Bido. Or maybe it's just the magic of playing in front of 12 fans every night. Okay, so why should you care about Osvaldo Bido? After all, there are plenty of pitchers out there with decent stuff and a chip on their shoulder. What makes him different? For starters, there's his upside. Bido isn't just another back of the rotation guy. He has the potential to be something special. His combination of stuff and command is rare. And if he can put it all together, he can be one of the best pitchers in all of the American League. Yes, I said it. Now, here's where things get tricky. The A's went out and made some moves in the offseason, signing Luis Severino and trading for Jeffrey Springs, which means the top 3 spots in the rotation are locked up tighter than John Fisher's wallet. That leaves 2 spots open for guys like Mitch Spence, Joey Estes, JT Ginn, and yes, Bido. But here's why I think Bido is an absolute lock for the rotation. Consistency and upside. He proved last season he can handle both starting and bullpen roles effectively. And while his ERA as a starter was slightly due to one bad outing against the Angels, like I mentioned earlier, he rebounded beautifully down the stretch. Look, I get it. It's easy to overlook someone like Osvaldo Bido when you got guys like Lawrence Butler smashing homers and Shea Langoliers gunning down base runners. But if you're looking for an under-the-radar player who could make a big impact in 2025, Bido is your guy. Whether he ends up as a starter or a high-leverage reliever, he brings something this team desperately needs: swing and miss stuff and the ability to keep hitters guessing. Let's not forget his journey from being non-tendered by Pittsburgh to carving out a role in the A's organization. It's the kind of story that makes baseball so much fun to watch. So, next time you're debating which jersey to buy or which player to root for during spring training, consider hopping on the Bido bandwagon early. Who knows? By this time next year, you might be telling your friends you called it when Osvaldo Bido becomes one of the A's most reliable arms. Speaking of sleepers, the A's made a trade that didn't garner much attention. Johnny Peretta. What's he all about? Up next. Today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you will score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Johnny Peretta is no stranger to packing his bags. At 28 years old, he has been through more organizations than some people have had roommates. The Cubs, the Red Sox, the Giants, the Reds, the Marlins, and now the A's have all been stops on his baseball journey. Think of him as like the Forrest Gump of minor league catchers. He's been everywhere. His journey began in 2013 when he signed as an international free agent with the Chicago Cubs. Since then, he's built a reputation as a solid hitter in the minors and a reliable defensive catcher. He finally got his first taste of the big leagues last season with the Marlins. In 20 games, he hit .231 with 4 RBIs. Sure, those numbers won't make you spit out your coffee. He's known more for his defense than his bat, which is baseball's code for don't expect him to hit a lot of home runs. But he won't let a ball roll to the backstop either. With that being said, at AAA Jacksonville, he was raking. He hit .297 with 4 bombs. He had an OPS of .829. He's gotten better. So we're talking about a guy who's been grinding for over a decade in pro ball, originally signed by the Cubs way back in 2013. He's made stops, like I said, with the Red Sox, Giants, and Reds. He landed with the Marlins last year. This is someone who has earned every opportunity he has gotten. Before we get into Peretta and what he brings to the table, let's talk about why the A's made this move in the first place. Simple. Depth and upside. Right now, it's Shea Langoliers, no question about it. He is firmly entrenched as the A's starting catcher. But beyond him, this is where things get murky. Tyler Soderstrom, one of the A's top prospects, has shown promise, but is likely to spend most of his time at first base moving forward. That left a glaring need for a backup catcher, hence Johnny Peretta. Also, let's not forget, Peretta has minor league options left, meaning if the A's want to stash him in AAA Vegas, they can. He's got a solid hit tool, some on-base skills, and he was named the best defensive catcher in the minors in 2018. That's a nice little feather in your cap. Peretta has long been praised for his defensive skills behind the plate. Pitch framing? Check. Blocking skills? Check. Leadership behind the plate? Check. For a team like the A's that's always looking to maximize value on defense, Peretta fits the mold perfectly. While Peretta isn't going to wow anyone with tape measure home runs, he's proven to be a reliable contact hitter with excellent plate discipline. He has a level of consistency, both offensively and defensively, that is rare for a backup catcher. Of course, every addition comes with a subtraction. For Kyle McCann, his time with the A's comes to an end, at least for now. Drafted in the 4th round back in 2019 out of Georgia Tech, McCann showed flashes of potential but struggled with consistency at both the plate and behind it. McCann's offensive profile has always been intriguing. Power from the left side and the ability to draw walks. However, his strikeout rates and below average receiving skills made him a liability at times. StatCast graded him as a below average pitch framer during his limited MLB action last season. It's worth noting that McCann fared well offensively at AAA Las Vegas in 2022, hitting .270 with 17 bombs and a .825 OPS over close to 400 plate appearances. But given his struggles in translating that success to the big leagues, it seems like the A's are ready to move on or at least explore other options. Look, I get it. Backup catchers don't exactly set Twitter ablaze or sell jerseys at team stores. But moves like this are where rebuilding teams can find hidden value. Remember when Oakland turned journeyman Brandon Moss into an all-star or helped Marcus Semien become an MVP finalist? The A's have a knack for unearthing diamonds in the rough. Johnny Peretta isn't going to single-handedly turn the A's into a playoff contender, but he represents something bigger. If he can provide steady defense, occasional offensive contributions, and maybe even mentor some young pitchers along the way. Think of Johnny Peretta as a reliable friend who always shows up to help you move. Not flashy, but very dependable. This move can end up looking pretty darn savvy for the A's. So there you have it. The A's made a trade, and yes, it surprised me. Not because it was splashy or headline grabbing, because when you actually dig into it, it was smart, it was subtle, and just quirky enough to make you scratch your head and say, Johnny who? First, let's talk about Elvis Alvarado, because with a name like that, how could we not? Elvis is in the building, folks. And by building, I mean the A's organization. But before you start imagining him belting out home runs, this Elvis started his career as an outfielder, but later converted to a pitcher. Yes, he pulled a reverse Rick Ankiel, swapping his bat for a mound. The Nationals signed Alvarado back in 2015 as an outfielder, but his 139 batting average in rookie ball screamed, maybe try something else. So they handed him a baseball and told him to throw it instead of hitting it. The results, well, let's just say it was a work in progress. His early pitching days were rough. Think of it as Elvis learning how to play the guitar before he became the king. But over time, Alvarado started to show flashes of potential. In 2022, with the Tigers minor league system, he posted a 2.72 ERA with 63 Ks and 10 saves across 3 levels. Not too shabby for a guy who used to swing at sliders in the dirt. By 2024, he had a breakout year in AAA with the Marlins system, boasting a 33.2% strikeout rate. Sure, his walk rate ballooned to 17.8%. He's apparently very generous with free passes, but hey, nobody's perfect. The Pirates took a chance on him this past December with a major league deal, only to DFA him after signing Adam Frazier. Enter the A's, who saw potential in Alvarado's electric stuff, especially that slider, to make him their latest reclamation project. In order to sign Alvarado, they had to release Anthony Maldonado. Now, let's pour one out for Anthony Maldonado, whose time with the A's was shorter than a TikTok dance trend. Maldonado joined the A's via waivers from the Marlins back in November and barely had time to unpack his suitcase before being DFA'd this last week. Okay, so why should we care about this waiver claim? Why Alvarado might work for the A's? The A's are no strangers to taking chances on players who've been overlooked or cast aside by other teams. Remember when they turned Liam Hendricks into an all-star closer after he'd been DFA'd by the Blue Jays? Or when the A's gave Chris Davis a shot and he rewarded them by hitting dingers like it was his job? Which, to be fair, it was. Alvarado fits that mold perfectly. He is raw, sure, but he's got a live arm and a fastball that touches the high 90s. The A's pitching coaches can harness that velocity and help him refine his secondary pitches. He could become a valuable bullpen piece, or at least a guy who eats innings while we wait for our next top prospect to arrive. Alvarado reminds me of Joe Boyle. He represents upside, the kind of high-risk, high-reward player that the A's love to bet on. His strikeout numbers in 2024 suggest he has the potential to miss bats at an elite level, which is something every bullpen craves. Sure, control issues are concerning. 17.8% walk rate, hence the comparison to Joe Boyle. But if the A's can help him harness that stuff, maybe by tweaking his mechanics or refining his pitch mix, he could become a valuable piece in their bullpen puzzle. And let's not forget that Alvarado has already shown a willingness to adapt throughout his career. He transitioned from outfielder to pitcher, survived multiple organizational changes, and even adjusted his pitch usage over time. throwing more sliders in recent years. That kind of resilience and flexibility could serve him well in the A's system. All eyes will be on Alvarado as he joins the A's organization. Will he finally make his MLB debut this season? Will he continue to rack up strikeouts while walking half the league? Or will he become yet another footnote in the A's long history of waiver wire experiments? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, it won't be boring. This move might not make headlines outside the hardcore baseball circles, but it's emblematic of how the A's operate. They are constantly searching for diamonds in the rough. Elvis Alvarado is the latest player to don the green and gold with hopes of proving he belongs in the big leagues. So buckle up, A's fans, whether you're rooting for Alvarado to become a strikeout machine or just hoping. This is all part of the roller coaster ride that comes with being an athletics fan. And who knows, maybe one day you'll look back on this move and say, remember when we claimed Elvis off waivers? That was genius. Or maybe we'll just shrug and say, well, at least they tried. Either way, it's all part of the fun and, frustration of following this team. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the off season. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I will see you tomorrow.